Thank you all for joining me. Sorry we're running a little bit late here. Today is just, literally this has become an issue multiple times over the last couple weeks. So this week is beat into agents' heads, amendatory clauses, as well as the sale contingency, finance contingency rules and whatnot. So first off, I got a purchase and sale in here. I just need to add a conventional finance contingency, and we'll grab an FHA as well. Add these to my little training file here, and we will get started. Let's start off with the amendatory clause. Everybody in here knows what that means? Who doesn't? Does anybody not know what the amendatory clause means? You've heard of the amendatory clause? Okay, so the amendatory clause is in an FHA VA loan exhibits. Okay, and basically what it's saying is I don't care what else you put into this contract, this verbiage rules. All right, so it is on page 2 here. Amendatory clause, section 11, right? So we see that there. It is expressly agreed, notwithstanding any other provisions of this agreement, buyer shall not be obligated to complete the purchase of the property described herein or to incur any penalty by forfeiture of earnest money deposits or otherwise, unless buyer has been, basically what all this says, unless buyer has been given a letter from HUD, the HUD appraiser, that the property appraised for the purchase price. So here's an example, right? We're all doing these escalation clauses, as well the extra money that we're willing to pay over appraised value and special stipulations. So we'll pay $5,000 over the appraised value, bringing the purchase price from $250 to $255 if that's what we need to do, right? If the property appraises at $250, I don't care that you said elsewhere in the contract that you will pay that extra money. Does not matter. The buyer can walk away from the transaction and keep their earnest money. They will not be penalized. It's confusing to a lot of people, but it is extremely black and white in the contract world. This, the amendatory clause, the lender is not supposed to order an FHA or VA appraisal unless they have this exhibit, specifically for the amendatory clause, because it is a protection put in by the government, by our GSEs, government-sponsored entities, Fannie, or I guess would HUD, yeah. So yeah, they do not allow for it. All right, does that make sense? Any questions on it? I mean, it's literally, it's black and white.
And I don't think you can legally.
No, you cannot cross it out.
The amendatory clause out of.
The lender is not supposed to order the appraisal without it. So you can't get rid of it. It is what it is.
So it's just those two. It's not the USDA or it's just those two, VHA and FHA.
VHA and FHA. I'm guessing USDA
Yeah, does.
But who does?
We're not doing USDAs. If it comes up, we'll bring it up. But in the amendatory clause, you'll see a purchase price there, right? So that should match the purchase price. Okay. Go ahead.
Does this have only to do with what the appraised value comes back at, or can they walk away at any point in there?
Only the appraised value. Okay. This says that if the property doesn't appraise, the buyer can walk away and they cannot be penalized, period. So here's a lot of times things that'll happen. There'll be an amendment to reduce the purchase price, right? In that amendment, when you have FHA or VA financing, you also need to amend the amendatory clause. Section 11 of the FHA exhibit shall be changed to what the same price. Say we're reducing it to $240,000. There's an amendment there. You'll also need to amend this. in order for you to be very nice, clean contract. Yes, ma'am.
So do you go to this, do you cross out the amount and have everybody initial it, or do you actually?
You can write it. You write it in the amendment. You reference FHA Exhibit C or whatever exhibit it is, Section 11. Amount shall be X amount of dollars.
Okay.
All right. Very good. No questions, right? It is black. Go ahead.
So if you don't appraise on VA or FHA, the options are basically buyer can walk and keep earnest money, seller can lower purchase price to match them.
Or the buyer can still pay over if they want
Buyer
to.
can contribute more cash.
The buyer can contribute more cash. At the bottom there, the appraised valuation is arrived to determine, where's it at? Right there. Yeah, there you go. Right after the dollar amount. Buyers shall have the privilege and option of proceeding if they wish to. And this is my phone call I got to take, if you could take over, Jay. Hello. Hey, this is Dewayne. Can you hang on just 1 second for me?
Frying pan, fire. Thank you, Dewayne. Okay, so the amendatory clause basically prevents them from being punished in any way, shape, or form for FHA and for VA. So any offer that you get in that is written in such a way that there's an appraisal gap coverage, if it's your listing, you need to understand it's basically worthless. It is not valid. And that might be an indicator of the experience level or knowledge level of your co-op agent if they don't know that information. Make sense?
The other, it could be they're really experienced and they know it's.
And they're trying to leverage your ignorance of it, and you need to be able to respond to that. So I saw your hand first. Go ahead.
So how do you work ribbon into this? Like, you want to make your buyer a lot more powerful. So if instead of the VA loan, you're going to give them a ribbon loan. They may close in time, but you have cash and you can use cash.
Absolutely. Viable option for that is, and this is one of the reasons the amendatory clause for FHA and VA are one of, this specifically is a reason why FHA and VA loans are going to be prioritized below conventional or cash in almost every scenario. Okay, it's because there's more regulation, there's more, there's more bureaucracy involved in these, so that is why it's going to be less desirable from a seller's perspective to be able to utilize this. So if you can alleviate that low priority by plugging them into a program like Ribbon or Knock that's going to present a cash, no contingency offer, your client is going to benefit from that. They're going to pay a little bit of a fee to be able to do it, but nothing worthwhile is free for the most part. Your question.
Well, it got answered. It was just going along the side of when we're saying that we could write the offer and still put that in there. It just depends on the other agent.
Yep.
But I've had a conversation on this same thing with the listing agent, just letting them know, like, hey, I understand that the mandatory clause is in here, but my buyers do have cash to be able to cover it, and then they would go down the talking track of, all right, show the proof. But they still understood that.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter.
Yeah. Absolutely. And not only that is if you do put in, whether it's on a VA, FHA, or even a conventional, if you do put in appraisal gap coverage, there's one special stipulation that covers appraisal gap. There's another one that says that they have the cash and here's a proof of funds of that cash. So that's going one step further than just saying we're willing to. It's saying we're willing to and here's the proof that we have the ability to. Okay, so in that, even they're doing a conventional financing, it's just the same as providing proof of funds for a cash offer. Just goes one step further.
So if you do it and Ribbon buys the home, correct? Would you have the DHA and FHA and VA, would you have that in your contract?
No. You're only going to have an all cash exhibit and a Ribbon offer.
Okay, so then when you do get the VA loan and they do come in and appraise the house, if it's lower than what then Ribbon eats that, correct?
Ribbon covers the appraisal gap.
I'm just trying to flow.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
So in response to the last huddle that we did on this topic, which about 50% of the time was spent on the alternatives to FHA and VA, I'm actually in the process of trying to get a rep from Ribbon to come in and do like an hour long, however much time we need. Because it's clear to me, even though we've been beating the drum forever, there's still a lot of questions about it, and I want to make sure that we're giving you guys the information you need to use this tool effectively. Okay? All right. Let's go to work today.